I like accidentally got this job, and it turned into 5 years on a show where I was known as this metal girl. And that was kind of a problem because I wasn't.
Jen, you have such a fascinating story that I'm super pumped to share with our listeners. You know, you started your career in acting, Broadway, and then as a VH1 host. What was that like?
It was an accident. I didn't mean to have this gig on VH1. So my whole life leading up to when I got that Broadway tour, I always wanted to be a musical theater actress. That was my dream since I remember thoughts. I was singing and dancing. Like if you came over to my house when I was 5, I would have dragged you into my living room and be like, sit down, I'm going to do a show for you now. So that's
Awesome.
all I ever wanted to do. And I went on the road and I did a Broadway national tour. I studied musical theater in college. And when I got back to New York and I was an auditioning actress, I came across this audition for this talk show on VH1 about heavy metal music. And I don't like heavy metal music, know nothing about heavy metal music. But in the show that I was in, I played like this rocker chick. So I was like, I could get this gig. Why not? Like, I'll just pretend I'm just going to do the same thing I just did on the road for a
Sure,
year.
sure.
And I like accidentally got this job, and it turned into 5 years on a show where I was known as this metal girl. And that was kind of a problem because I wasn't,
Mm-hmm,
but I was
mm-hmm,
showing up as this person that I thought I needed to be every
mm-hmm,
single
mm-hmm.
day, basically, in order to keep my job, in order to be relevant. And that led me down a pretty dark path, as it usually does when you're not being authentic.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about that living in misalignment and losing yourself. How'd you reconnect to the real
Mm.
you, to who you authentically were? How'd you do that?
I was forced to, because everything was taken, and I feel like, I mean, for me, in my experience, when I couldn't get myself back into alignment, I couldn't get myself out of the situation. I was on this show where I felt like I was out of alignment. I was in a relationship where I was out of alignment, and I felt stuck. Like I was like, I can't get out of the relationship. I can't leave the show. I don't know what I would be without all of this. So I believe that the universe stepped in for me and was like, all right, the show's going to get canceled. The boyfriend's going to leave you for one of your friends, and you're going to just be like having to figure it out on your own.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And sometimes shit happens so the shift can happen, and sometimes you can't make it happen on your own. And an outside source, like for me, it's like God, the universe stepped in and was like, listen, if you're not going to figure it out, I'm going to force you to. And
Mm-hmm.
I found myself in this tiny little apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I lived there with 6 other actors, and I lived in this tiny little room, and I had a window that faced a brick wall. I had no idea who I was anymore. Like I had no job, no boyfriend, and I had to start over. And it was during that time where I wish I could tell you, Molly, that it was like everything transformed in that moment. And I was forced to see
Mm-hmm.
myself, and I did, and I figured it out, but it didn't happen that quickly. It got actually a lot darker before it got better. And I went through this really deep depression, and my mom actually had to come into the city, and like she was like, I gotta come and snap you out of it. I don't know what's going on with you. And she actually, my mom's really into personal development, and she gave me this book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a book full of affirmations. And at the time, I was not open to hearing any personal development stuff. I was
Right.
like, whatever, mom, forget it.
Yeah,
But my
yeah.
mom is very smart, and she knew I wasn't going to read the book, but she photocopied one of the affirmations for me and put it inside the book. And on the back of the photocopy, it said, Jenny, I hope you find yourself again. And I looked at it, I put the book down, I said, okay, maybe I'm not going to read this book. I'm not ready for that yet, but I can take this affirmation and I can just read this every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to commit to. Reading
Mm-hmm.
this one little thing every day. And I don't know if it was the affirmation itself or the act of sticking to a commitment with myself, like
Mm.
doing one thing that made me feel good about myself every single day. But I slowly but surely, like that affirmation, like the act of reading it, the morning routine of getting up and reading it out loud was like that first little action step that gave me the momentum to start
Yeah.
to get myself out of my apartment and build my first business and get myself to the floor of Barnes and Noble, where I started reading personal development books and I started
Mm.
figuring out who the hell I was and what I wanted to do. And it all kind of spiraled from there. That was really the first step.
What would you say was the moment when you went, I am misaligned? I have a
Mm,
problem. This is a gap. Was there,
yeah.
when did you get clear on that? Because it sounds like things happened to you versus you going, I got to make a shift. Is that accurate? And get me inside of
Yes.
that.
There was a moment where I knew that I needed to make a shift and I didn't take action then, but I remember this moment so clearly. I was invited to go to this very cool private dinner party with a editor in chief at a really big magazine, and she
Hmm.
invited all of these women who were like doing cool things. And because I was on this TV show, I was invited to this dinner.
Hmm.
And there's all these like women doing really epic stuff, and of course I have imposter syndrome, but I walk in the door and the editor in chief of this magazine looks at me. She was so surprised. She's like, "Wait, you're so nice. I almost didn't invite you to this dinner. I have to tell
Wow.
you because your photo on the internet scared me." And I was like, there is something so wrong. I am so showcasing something that is completely a lie and it's not even doing me any good now. And I knew then, and that
Mm.
was like the turning point. And then once I lost it all, and I remember looking out that window and I had the affirmation and everything started to click. I was like, if I don't start being seen to the world as myself, I'm going to end up in this exact spot again. And I
Hmm.
don't know how I had the whereabouts about me to be able to think that and say that thought because I wasn't really into personal
Hmm.
growth or anything like that at that point. But I just knew that I needed to take down the masks,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. It does feel like that, doesn't it, Jen? That there's like these moments that, and I have a brilliant, wise mother too, right? That can say one little thing, give you one little thing, and everything flips upside down in your own mind, and you change your behavior or you start that journey. So we're very blessed to have those wise women in our lives.
For sure.
How did you transition into what you're doing now? I mean, like
Mm.
so we sort of go through this journey. We're shifting. We're reading this mantra every day. But look at where you are now, right? Get me inside of that transition.
Yeah. So it started with fitness, which was like my stepping stone. And I remember when I was doing that metal show and I was an actress and I was waiting tables, I was babysitting. Right. When you're an actor, you need to have your other jobs that you're doing. And I always thought, I love working out. If I ever like have a job, I think I would be a great personal trainer. So the first thing that came to my mind, and I tell everybody that's listening to this right now, I really want you to think about if you're transitioning or you're shifting gears or you're trying to pivot, what's something that you really enjoy that you
Mm-hmm.
know that you're really good at and maybe not a lot of other people are great at, that you can start just dipping your toe into that thing because it might not end up being your ultimate purpose, but it might be the thing that leads you to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so fitness was that for me. And that was the easy first thing that I could do. I'm like, I could become a trainer. And during the process of building this personal training business, which ultimately became actually a successful business where I had trainers working for me and it was my own company. And I actually learned how to become an entrepreneur during that time that I started to get that bug where it's like, oh, I could build businesses, I could make my own money, I could learn how to sell it, I learned how to market myself, and and it was fun. And I was like, wait, I kind of like this more than acting. This is a little bit better. This is a
That's
little
cool.
cooler. And
Right.
then something crazy happened because there was a piece of me that missed performing because when you're an actor and you're a performer, it's a part of you. It's a piece of you. You need
Mm-hmm.
to do it or I felt an emptiness where it was missing. And I got asked to speak to a group of fitness professionals when I built my fitness business to as big as it did. They were like, come and share your story with these other fitness professionals, like in this, fitness studio. I'm like, great. So wait, you're asking me to do like a talk? I never knew what a talk was before in my life, or that you could do like a keynote
You're
inspirational
right.
talk. They're like,
Right.
yeah, come tell your story. And I was so nervous. And there was like 12 people there, and I had no shoes on. I was at a bar studio, and I told my story. And when I saw a few girls on the floor start to cry when I was telling my story, I was like, wait a second. I'm performing. I'm helping people.
Mm.
I'm this is this speaking thing. This could be this is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. So that opened my whole world. And this is why I tell people that you can't always connect the dots when you look forward, but you got to take action and you got to do all kinds of crazy stuff in order to connect them when you look backwards. And it always makes sense.
Yeah.
And for me, I trained my whole life to be an actor, to be on stage. And I always thought it was reading someone else's lines and singing someone else's songs. But the moment
Mm.
I had that connection with the audience in that way, where I was just telling my story, and it was another way to perform, but I could help people and
Mm-hmm.
I could say my own words, something clicked. And then I met my husband, and we started our company, Super Connector Media, which was a PR agency. And we taught entrepreneurs how to build brands, just like how I transitioned from metal girl to fitness girl. And I taught
Hmm.
other people how to do that. And it skyrocketed really, really quickly. And now I've found myself as a speaker, which is like the thing that I love to do more than anything in the world. And I
Hmm.
never,
Hmm.
ever, ever would have found this other way of performing if I didn't go through all of that to get here. But it finally feels right. And that's why you never know what the purpose of
Hmm.
what you're doing is in the moment. But
Yeah.
it'll lead you somewhere if you keep following it.
Well, it's so cool to hear you tell that story. I mean, and so you go and do this talk, you feel like, wait a minute, people are connecting. This is resonating. This feels really good. This actually is tying in a lot of the stuff that I'm already good at. When did you go all in on that
Hmm.
and really lean into it fully? Because feel a lot of people feel that way, but are afraid, right? To
Yeah.
go, man, I have this thriving fitness gig over here, company. Get me
Yeah, and
inside
I
of
let
that.
go of the whole thing.
Right.
So my husband was doing these events that connected entrepreneurs to the media. They were these like they were kind of small events where he would teach business owners how to become the recognized expert in their space, and I would sit as the girlfriend and I would watch him and I would be like, "That's so cool! Like I would love to speak more and maybe one day do events with him." But it was never really a thought to come together because I had a thriving business.
Hmm.
And one day we were at this conference together, and I was helping a lot just because I loved it and I wanted to, and I was helping him like get people into his programs, and we were kind of like working together in a way, and we didn't even realize it until the end. And we went for this walk, and he's like, "What would it take for you to let go of your business and for us to build this company into something together?"
Wow.
And I said, "It would take nothing. I'm done." Like I knew. I was like, "This is it." And I took the risk, and I took something that was working and I shut it down in order to
Mm.
build something that would work better. And so we started doing these events together, and I started speaking on stage at these events. And it was event after event after event where I learned and honed my skills in speaking. I wasn't speaking on anybody else's stages for years,
Mm.
only
Hmm.
our own,
Got it.
until I felt like I was good enough to start expanding and going on other people's stages. And so I got a lot of reps before I got to where I am right now.
You know what's so cool about what you're sharing, and I just have to share this briefly, which I normally don't want to like to do, but I feel super connected with what you just shared because I had 300 athletes and coaches, a team of agents. I walked across the street to give a talk, to your point, that a friend asked me to give. I get over there, do this little talk, and 45 minutes later, this lady at the back of the room comes up and says, "You need to do this." I go, What do you mean?" She goes, "You need to do this all the time." I go, "Do what?" She goes, "Speak." I go, "This is what I book all my athletes for. What are you talking about?" And no, you need to do this. And people sometimes think, how could you walk away from being a sports agent with all these athletes? And the outside world thinks you're crazy. But what I realized was, as an agent, you're building connection with athletes and coaches who are very hard to get in front of. It's incredibly competitive. You have to build trust really fast. They have a very short window of time to make an enormous amount of money, and my job was to maximize that. And speaking is the same thing. You're walking on a stage, people are staring at you like, "Lady, I'm busy. What do you got?"
Yes.
You got to connect fast, right? And maximize that window of time. So I share that only because there's so many moments in our lives, for you, for me, for people listening, where things happen and we have to listen. We have to pay attention to what those are, and in turn, potentially what we think may be where we are supposed to be living our purpose. It may, in fact, be somewhere else.
Hmm.
And that's living our best life, despite maybe the outside world looking in, going, huh, that doesn't really all add up. But when you hear you explain your journey, and now you get to use your own words, your own lines. I just love how you share that, Jen. That is super cool. Your book, Be Seen, it is out now, and I absolutely love your book. It's fantastic, and it is like birthing a child, isn't it? It's quite a process.
Yes.
Who did you write this book for?
I know exactly. So I get very clear on this woman that I wrote this book for, and it is for everybody, but I really like to work with client avatars really deep in that. And this is for anybody that's writing a book out there. If
Mm-hmm.
you have writer's block, this is a fix because I never got writer's block when I wrote this book. I'm not a writer. I don't like writing, But because I was so clear on who my person was, it was easy
Mm,
for me to talk to her. So her
wow.
name is Kayla. She's a Pilates instructor from Wisconsin. She's stuck in the studio, but she has this dream to have this online presence and to be the expert in the space and to have a viral YouTube channel and to have products, but she's too scared. She's too scared about what people think. She's too scared of failure. She's too scared of putting herself out there. So she's stuck. And
Mhm.
I just, every time I went to write the book, I sat down and I envisioned Kayla sitting across from me and we were at a
Mm.
coffee shop and I'm just talking to Kayla and telling her my stories and telling her all I know about building a brand and all about fear and all about imposter syndrome and how to do it with it there anyway. And I wrote it for that person. But what I realized when people started reading the book is it wasn't just for that person. It's not just for the entrepreneur. I have a lot of people coming and saying, Jen, I finally was able to like be seen as who I really am with my family and with my friends
Mm.
and actually be the authentic version of myself, which now I feel like I'm free.
Mm.
And that alone, I'm like, if it can do that, and you can feel, everyone just wants to feel seen. So whether
Yeah.
you're building a brand and an audience and a business, and you want to be famous online, or you just want to feel seen in your life,
Mhm.
living the life that you really want, not a life that somebody else wanted for you, this
Sure.
book is for you.
Yeah. And you share a lot of actionable tools in the book. So I don't want to give it all away. People got to go get it. But what are one or two that really stand out to you that people can go implement right now? You share a ton of them, but what are a couple of your favorites?
Okay. My number one favorite is the badass list. This is my favorite because it is my tool for imposter syndrome, and I've been using it pretty much every day during this book launch
Mhm.
myself. And I use all of my tools myself because it doesn't matter what level you're at, fear doesn't go away. Fear for
Yeah.
me, it doesn't. It's always
Hmm.
there. I bring it along with me, and it's how good am I at doing things with fear there anyway. So whenever I get imposter syndrome, which many of you might be familiar, you might be familiar with this, Molly,
Sure,
that feeling of
100%.
like, am I
Yep.
good enough to be here? Am I supposed to be here right now? Like, or is everyone going to think that I'm a fraud, that I'm faking it? Totally normal feeling. I feel that the reason I get imposter syndrome is because maybe I'm spending a little bit too much time scrolling the internet and comparing myself to other people and seeing all the amazing things other people are doing. And I forget my
Mm.
worthiness. It's very, very easy because we're so close to our stories and our accomplishments and our achievements that if we start looking at other people too much, which is just what we do in this day and age in 2023, we can start to feel like I'm not good enough. So
Hmm.
the badass list is my tool, and it's not necessarily the actual list, it's how you use it. So I want everyone who's listening to pay attention. We're all going to make a badass list. So you take out your phone. I want everyone to do it in their phone because we lose paper. We have our phone on us all the
Right.
time, and you never know when you're going to need it. So you open up the note section in your phone and you write down all of the moments in your life that come to you when you were or felt like a badass, felt awesome. And it could be a huge moment, like when you spoke on a huge stage in front of thousands and thousands of people for the first time, or it could be like a private moment where you're like, man, I just felt so good about myself for getting on the treadmill after years of not going to the gym. Whatever kind of a moment it is for you, write all those badass moments down. We all have them. Maybe you ran a marathon. Maybe you gave birth to a human. Maybe you overcame an illness. Maybe the day you met the love of your life and you walked down the aisle to them. Whatever it is for you, and then whenever you're feeling like an imposter or you don't want to be seen because you feel like, "Oh, I'm not as good as them," or I'm not deserving of this." Open up your list and read it out loud as if you're reading it about somebody else.
Mm.
Somebody that you're maybe
Mm.
like FOMOing over on the internet. Like it's not you, it's someone else and you're reading all of these accomplishments and badass moments about this person. And then ask yourself, is this person worthy of doing all these things? Is
Mm.
this person are they good enough to do the thing that I'm afraid to do right now? I would guarantee you that you'll be in awe of that person. And then you just need to take a beat and remember that that person is you.
Mm.
And if you're capable of doing all of those things, you're absolutely enough to do
Mhm.
whatever it is that's in front of you at that moment.
The badass list. It's
A
so
badass
good.
list.
It's so
That's my
good,
fave.
girl. It's so good. So much of your content is around relationships, which I connect to so much as a sports agent. That was
Yes.
everything was building connection. How do you coach people on the power of connection, the power of
Mhm.
networking, of relationships?
It's the most important thing. It's the third part of the book is called Be Connected, all about building relationships, networking. And people often go about building relationships wrong. Molly, I know you're unbelievably successful in this area, so you're probably really good at this. But the key to building relationships is not going into a room and figuring out how you can get what you need. The key to
Hmm.
building relationships is going into a room, whether it be virtual or in person or however you connect with somebody, and figuring out how you can provide value to other people and being unbelievably interested and curious in others, because everybody's favorite thing to talk about is themselves. And
Totally.
everybody just wants to feel seen.
Yeah.
So the key to making people remember you and want to follow up with you and want to know you and think, oh my God, I love her. She's the greatest person ever. That was the best conversation I ever had, is to just be unbelievably interested in that person and figure out how you can provide value to them. And if you just lead with that, there's so many tips in the book, but that one tip, we like to use the acronym HOPE, HOPE, figure out how you can help one person every day. If you do that, then
Hmm.
you will get everything that you want out of relationships. And not only will you do that, you'll also make a lot of amazing friendships and have a really fun, beautiful life, because that's the key to happiness, really, is
Yeah.
helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And curiosity is a word that I think drives this point to reality at some level, right? Authentically curious, really wanting to get inside the heads and the hearts of the people that you walk into a room with. Are you born with curiosity, right, Jen? Or is that something you can coach people to unlock? And if so, how?
I think you can unlock it. I don't think people are necessarily, maybe we're very, kids are really curious. So I think
Sure.
we're born with curiosity. But of course, people lose their confidence over time. I know I did. I was the most confident kid in the world. And I became very insecure and very much an introvert over years of conditioning in my teenage years and just not feeling good enough and feeling like I needed to fit in and then not knowing who I was. And it happens. And then we go into a room and we're like, oh my God, how do I talk to people I don't even know anymore? So
Hmm.
we get good at what we practice. And you know this, you work with athletes. It is the exact same thing. Even like the best athletes in the world, they have the best coaches in the world. And the best athletes in the world spend more time practicing than anybody. And they're the
Sure.
best.
Sure.
So I believe that you get better at networking the more that you practice. And unfortunately, it is not the most fun thing to practice, but anything that's worth being good at is kind of hard when you get into the room. So I tell people, listen, go put yourself in a networking situation and make it a game.
Hmm.
Gamify it.
Hmm.
Give yourself a goal. Say, okay, I'm gonna meet 3 people in this room right now, and I'm gonna find out how I can help each and every one of them. 3 people. That's my goal. Or I'm gonna get 3 selfies with people that are new friends, and I'm gonna send those selfies to them in a follow up and tell them how much I love their conversation and provide them with some sort of value in the follow
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
And the more that we can get those reps in of really just conditioning ourselves to say, hey, like, what are you working on right now and how can I help? It's very
Hmm.
simple. It'll become second nature, but I don't know if it's innate in us. I really got better at it with practice.
Sure. Well, by the way, I mean, I think it's a way more interesting way to live your life because you're learning all the time. I mean, people are sharing things and updates and things happening in their lives, and you're asking questions and you're learning, which to me is one of the most common traits of high performers in life in any field. So you co-found a super connected. Wait, I'm gonna do that again.
Yeah.
You're the co-founder of Super Connector Media, which, by the way, is so badass, right? It's an award-winning training, events, online education company, all these things. How is Super Connector Media different from others?
Well, we just did our first really major big event. We had 600 people. It was called Build Your Brand Live. And the thing that I believe makes us special is we're a media company, but we're really a personal development company disguised as a media company, because you can't get away from us without finding yourself and figuring out like who you are and really connecting to what you want to do and seeing your full potential. And we really like my real title at my company is, yes, I'm co-founder, but I'm chief mindset officer. Because if someone's not
Love
being seen and not building their brand and not putting themselves out there, it's not necessarily because they don't know how. It's not
it.
because they don't have the strategy. And we'll teach the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
We teach a lot about AI. We're really into artificial intelligence,
Saw
teaching
that,
strategy
yeah.
on content creation, all of that. We teach you. But it's never the strategy. It's always the mindset. Because if you are letting fear keep you from putting yourself out there, there's nothing in the world that I can tell you to do that's going to make you start to connect with people, start to put yourself out there, and start to build your brand. So we
Mm-hmm.
always lead with mindset. we don't necessarily tell people that we're going to lead with mindset, but we sneak it in. And by the time they're done with us, they're like, oh my God, I can't even believe what I'm capable of. People being on Good Morning America and the Today
Sure.
Show and publishing their books and producing their podcasts. It's not because they needed to learn the tools to know how to do it. It was because we gave them permission to actually be themselves and show the world who they are.
So Jen, I'm sure that, I mean, there's some people probably listening who are, an ER doc or maybe a school teacher or my mother, and they're like, why do I need to build a personal brand? Like, get me inside of who
Yeah.
needs to do this.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to do anything. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everybody needs to have a personal brand. That's not true. If you don't want one, that's totally fine. However, I would recommend that if you are a service provider or you are a entrepreneur or you have a service or a story or a product that you're trying to get out there, you should have a personal brand. It's my recommendation. And I'll give you an example as to why. Let's use the doctor example. I was looking for a doctor the other day, a dermatologist. And what's the first thing that I did when I was looking for a doctor? I got a couple of referrals. And then what did I do? I went onto social media and I looked at their
Mm-hmm.
Instagrams and I picked the one whose Instagram I liked the best. And everybody is doing that. Even with dating, okay? If you're single and you're swiping and you connect with somebody and then you go look online and they have zero virtual presence, you can't find them anywhere on the internet, no
Yeah.
Facebook, no LinkedIn, no nothing. I wouldn't go out with that person because that would make me very nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone should have some sort of virtual presence, whether you call that a personal brand or you just call that being visible online so that you've got, something on there for people to see when they're looking on if they want to hire you or work with you or date you or connect with you or talk to you or be friends with you. In 2023, you must have that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a business owner, it's the greatest investment that you can make,
Sure.
especially if you're building a company to maybe one day sell. This I talk to a lot of people that are building massive companies and
Mm-hmm.
that want an acquisition on the other side. I'm like, listen, the number one thing you need to invest in is your personal brand because you will sell this company eventually. And when you do, you don't want to have zero online presence and zero audience because if you want to build another company, that's going to be really, really hard. But
Mm-hmm.
if you build your brand while building this company and you build an audience that loves you for you, not necessarily the company that you're building, but they're
Mm-hmm.
learning from you as you build the company and they fall in love with you, the next time you go to raise capital, the next time you go to build something, you've got an entire audience of people that love you. That is, I mean, it's an attention economy. Like
Yeah.
that's money right
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
in your audience. So I recommend highly that everyone has a personal brand.
Well, now, what's your take on, you and I both know, and probably many of our listeners, James Clear, whose book is just epic from the perspective of, I mean, you're in a book launch. I've got a book coming out in September of 2024. This guy, it's unbelievable what he's done with his book and his brand at some level. What would you say are what do you think are some of the most important things to think about when you think about building a personal brand? For example, James believes it's the email platform and the
Hmm.
email lists, right?
Yeah.
Carlos Whitaker, who was on my podcast, he's an Instagram guy, and that's his home base. And you hear people say, "Well, good luck, right? Like you can do it on Instagram, but you're not in control at the end of the day. Newsletters, you are." Or not newsletters, but emails you have more connection to. Tell me your philosophy on this. And when you think about building a personal brand, should you lean into one more than the other? Do you have a presence on all, but really focus on one? How important is it to control it with it being sort of that email foundation? I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, first thing is to be unbelievably self aware on what you enjoy, what you like, and where the attention of your ideal customer is. So,
Mm-hmm.
people, like, it would be crazy for me to give you one blanket answer for absolutely everybody because somebody might have all of their audiences on LinkedIn. It's all on LinkedIn. And somebody, it's like all of their audiences on Instagram. And some people, all their audiences on YouTube. And some people, they're everywhere. Either way, what you said about email is unbelievably important. You don't own social media. At any moment in time, the algorithm could kick in and nobody could see your posts. At any moment in time, all of your followers can be removed. It's rented property.
Yeah.
So wherever you're posting, you need to make sure you have some sort of lead magnet, some sort of funnel that takes them off of social onto your email, onto your text. That's 100% yes. That's a big piece of advice if you're converting people into whether you want them to buy your book or your course or even just keep up with you, they need
Mm-hmm.
to be in your email or your text. However, when it comes to content creation, my first tip is to, if you're just starting out, focus on what you enjoy the most. So for me, I create for one platform and then I take that one piece of content and I repurpose it onto all the other ones. If I
Mm,
were to create original content for every single platform, I would go crazy. I would have no time.
yeah.
Repurposing now with AI is so unbelievably easy. So let's say you just love TikTok, it's your favorite, you're on there all the time, it feels comfortable and it feels good to produce content on there. Produce content for TikTok, take that and put it onto YouTube Shorts, put it onto Facebook Reels, put it onto Instagram Reels, and then you can even transcribe it or you can make screenshots out of it or you can take the caption and you can expand on it using AI and you could make different carousels and you can make different images and you could take one for you. You've got a podcast.
Yep.
One podcast, one long form could be transcribed and turned into a blog. It could be turned into a full email sequence now using ChatGPT. It could
Hmm.
be broken up into tiny little captions for Twitter and threads. You could make Twitter threads, you could make threads, and you could make little images for carousels. So my recommendation is to focus on your favorite platform as the spoke of the wheel.
Hmm.
Create for that favorite platform, whether that's where your audience attention is or that's what you love, because consistency is key. So you got to like it.
Yeah.
And then take that and repurpose it for all the other platforms because you should be everywhere. You want
Yeah.
someone to say, "Oh my gosh, Molly, I see you everywhere. You're
Hmm.
crushing it." Like
Yeah.
that's what you want people to say. They can't open their phone or their computer without seeing you, but you don't want to kill yourself in the process.
What's your one?
Instagram.
Is it that's your favorite? Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make when they're trying to build their
Mm,
social audience?
so many. All right, I'll start with this one upsets me personally, and that's when people post and ghost. Social media is supposed to be social.
Mm,
It is not. It is your online magazine, and you want to make sure that you curate it. If you're an influencer or you're trying to be a recognized expert, of course. But you're posting content not just for people to look at and comment and then not communicate with them. The whole point is to build community. So I see so many people post something, and then people take time out of their day to write comments on that person's post. How lovely is that gift? And then the person never says thank you for the gift.
yeah.
And then if so imagine you gave me a gift and I didn't say thank you. I just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you would
Sure.
never give me a gift ever again. You'd be like, screw her. I am never giving her a gift. And that's how it works. And your engagement will increase the more that you interact and communicate and the more social you are on your social media platform.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
posting and ghosting is number one. Number two, inconsistency. And we are in a like immediate gratification world that people want immediate. So what I see is especially people that are just starting out, we work with a lot of people that are beginning their brand and beginning to post. They'll post for 2 weeks and they'll be like, I didn't get any engagement. So I just took a few days off. So what people are doing is they're comparing their beginning chapter to somebody else's chapter 20.
Yeah.
Somebody else on the internet that's been building their brand for years. They've had no one responding to their stuff for years. Some bombed, some were successful. Like they were building forever to get to the point where they are. And someone's like, I just started for 2 weeks and it didn't take off, so I'm not going to do it anymore, or I'm going to take a week off, or I'm going to take 3 days off, and it's not working. No one sees it anyway, so I shouldn't post. You have to be patient and you have to be in it for the long game. My social did not take off for years. And
Hmm.
I had to be consistently posting every single day in order for people to understand that they could trust me enough to follow everything that I was doing and that I would
Hmm.
communicate back with them and build community. And it really is, it takes time and it takes consistency. So
Hmm.
if you're going to start at a level that feels comfortable enough for you to be consistent every day with it. So if that's only one post a day, that's fine. That's
Right.
fine.
Right.
Do it. And then when you're consistent with that, build up to two and then
Yeah.
maybe build up to three. But make sure
Hmm.
it's something that you can be consistent with because if you fall off every once in a while, which I know people are doing, and then you come back like, I took a week off of social media. No one cares that you took a week off of social
Yeah.
media.
Right.
Nobody missed you. The algorithm might, and you
Yeah.
might be back to square one.
Yeah. Yeah. But the people that posted responses to your comment, they maybe did miss you. I heard somebody say
Yeah.
once, it's like walking into a room and saying something and then just turning out just not saying anything for the rest of the night. Like you just
Yeah.
these people that at some level you go dark. How do you measure if you have a strong personal brand or not? Like what how do you know
Mm.
when you're successful? How do you know when it's working?
For me, I'll tell you a story of how I knew when it started working, which is really funny where all the dots connected and it really clicked. And I I imagine that people listening to this right now understand the value that your personal brand has when it comes to, let's say you do want to get a book deal one day, or you want to get a podcast that's sponsored, or you want to get a TV show, or you want people to pay you the big bucks for you being you. And that happens now with people with big personal brands. And it's so funny when I was looking for a book agent for this book that for Be Seen, they obviously all want to see your following. It's a big deal because
Hmm.
publishers are not necessarily buying your book idea. They're
Right.
buying you. They're buying everything that comes with it. They're buying your audience. They're buying your presence, your personal brand. It's so unbelievably important. And was so funny after we got the deal and I was working with the agent for a while, he sent me a screenshot that he took years prior. He's like, "This is really funny. I screenshotted your profile a while ago to send to my team to tell them that I wanted to approach you about doing a book with you because I loved your Instagram and your personal brand."
Mm.
But he's like, "It's crazy. We never ended up reaching out, but we ended up finding each other anyway." At
Wow.
that moment, I was like, wow, that was when my personal brand was like, okay, this is actually attracting people that want to do things with me because they see the value in it. And I think when you start to get opportunities like that, you start to feel it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But success looks different for everybody because here's the thing. Sometimes vanity metrics don't matter. If you're building a personal brand because you want to generate revenue in your business, let's say you have a roofing company and you want to generate revenue for your roofing company. And that's why you have a podcast and that's why you have
Yeah.
a social media platform. You could have 300 followers on there. But if those 300 followers are your potential clients and they're watching because they're looking for someone to fix their roof and it's directly correlating with sales, you are crushing it with those
Right.
300 followers. And that's amazing. And you have hit it big and your brand is working. Keep on going.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for the big opportunities to come your way, the stages, all of that, then sometimes those vanity metrics all matter. And
Hmm.
you'll be able to feel that when you start getting those opportunities.
So at some level, you've got to figure out what is success for you because it's different for
Yeah.
everybody. To your point, it may be what one thing for the roofing guy and a different thing for a personal brand out speaking like you, for example, or it's different.
Yeah.
So Be Seen is out. Where can people find you, Jen, and learn more?
Well, like I said, Instagram is my fave. So I'm there. It's me in the comments and me in the DMs at Jen_Gottlieb. And that's the fastest way. And then everything that we do, you'll be able to see through Instagram. And you can go grab the book at beseenbook.com or anywhere that you get books.
I love it. I love it. So we end with rapid fire. I'm going to hit a couple quick ones at you. All right.
Do it.
What's your favorite book?
Ah, well, you know, my favorite book is The Science of Getting Rich. Wallace D.
Ah,
Wattles. Have you read it?
I have not.
Okay.
I need
Highly
to.
recommend. It's an
All
older
right.
book.
Okay. A lot of times people do that. They'll throw out these books that have been around for a long, which is really kind of cool. What's the one best or maybe worst worthwhile investment or purchase you've made lately,
The best worthwhile purchase?
or the worst?
Ooh, or the worst. I want to do the best. I would say, what, you want me to do the worst? I'm trying to think
Just
if
do the
there's a,
best. Just do the best. Just do the best and the most worthwhile investment or purchase that you've made lately.
oh my God, the most, oh, our COO. We just hired a new COO. She's amazing.
That's
I'm
awesome.
obsessed with her and she's taken us to new levels. So that was a purchase and it was a big one, but it
That's
was the best.
that's awesome. Love it. So in the last year, what's a new habit maybe that's improved your life?
Mm. Okay. This is interesting because it's a reverse habit.
Oh
A
yeah,
habit
yeah.
that a habit that has improved my life is always having a little bit of dessert every night after dinner. And I never used to do that, and now I always allow myself to have a little bit, and it actually changes the way that I do my entire day because I look forward to that little celebration at night, and it's been a great new habit. And I
That
allow myself to have fun.
what is it like a little cube of 80% cacao
Yeah,
chocolate?
sometimes we have a Ninja Creamy ice cream
Oh
maker.
my God, my girls got one of those. They love it. That thing's
It's the
epic.
best. So
Yeah,
we're
it is.
protein powder, but it's dessert. It is
I
not the healthiest. And I have a couple scoops of that,
yeah,
or a little bit of like Arctic Zero, or a little bit of ice cream when we go out to dinner. And I never used to allow myself that.
yeah.
And I make it a moment. And because I'm having that moment, I'm actually healthier throughout the day. I stick to my commitments throughout the day because it's my celebration for myself at night. So it actually holds me accountable. And
That's
it's a great
cool.
little way to remind yourself to celebrate a little bit every day.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So the show's called Game Changer. So, a last question: who or what's a game changer who inspires you, and why?
Mm. My husband, my husband, Chris. And he inspires me every single day.
Mm,
And if you don't know Chris Winfield, you can follow him online. But he is, you know, I'm a quick start now. This is just one of the examples of how he's changed me. And I think that this is really important to talk about because you are the average of the people you spend the most time with. And I
yeah.
spend the most time with him, clearly. He's my business partner and my husband. And I always used to take forever to make decisions. And I think that was holding me back in business in a really big way because I would overanalyze and I would need to plan. It would take me forever. And my
Hmm.
husband is a quick start. He makes decisions like that. We have an idea, he starts that day. And because I've been with him for so long and been doing business with him for so long, that's rubbed off on me. And I've actually changed and become a quick start when I was not. I was the opposite. And it's why I have the book deal. It's why I have the presence that I have
Wow.
because I
Wow.
take action fast. And just that little piece of like, I guess you would call it like it was mentorship without him even trying to mentor me,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
seeing what we could create or what he could create when he takes action fast and makes fast decisions and I started implementing it into my life, and it actually changed everything for me. That, along with a million other things, I owe
Mm.
to him. But he's definitely the person that I look up to the most.
That is cool. I love that. There was a company that I spoke to, Jen, recently, and you and maybe you and Chris can make this happen in your house. The the risers on the steps in their office say, "Make decisions.
Oh,
Make
that's good.
decisions." That
It's
hey,
so important. If
I
you don't
know.
take
I
action and
agree.
make a decision, nothing happens. And I was stuck for so long because of that.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Chris is a rock star too, and so are you, Jen. This was super fun. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.